happy, I don't know what day it is, Tuesday, Broncos country. Welcome to Let's Talk Broncos. I'm Bri here with Joey Richards and Zach Seegers. We've got a heck of a show for you. Trade deadline's happening. It is record-breaking as far as trade deadlines go. 10 total made today, the most ever on any NFL trade deadline day.
Ooh.
Guys, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling okay, honestly. It's not like I'm not all down and out, you know. I think the Broncos got fair compensation back. What was that?
You have no feelings.
I have no feelings. but we'll get into that later. I was glued to my phone the entire day, which is another story. But man, a little tired, but excited to get into it with you guys. Zach, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, excited. It's interesting. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but it's like the Broncos kind of traded maybe some excitement about this season for some hope for the future, but it's kind of nice. They didn't have a whole lot of hope for the future, and now they do. So I'm excited for that.
There we go.
I guess I'm the one in the weird camp where I am kind of sad about it. I don't think that we're going to get into the trade talk. Let me just say, I'm a little out of sorts today. Missed a lot of the action, so I'm going to be catching up with the rest of you. But let's get to it. Let's start talking. Jose Garcia echoes my sentiments. Just a little sad smiley face, or a sad face. Sorry, Jose. I also feel the same way. Unfortunately, the Broncos did, or fortunately for those who enjoyed the draft, they were able to acquire some fantastic picks. I do want to, before we get into it, just remind you, if you're listening over on Twitter, you need to jump on over to the Facebook or the YouTube stream so you can get your questions and comments highlighted, much like Jose just did there. If you have questions about the trade, what it means, or anything else about the Denver Broncos, please let us know. Let's get into it. Obviously, the trade package as outlined here, as Zach has put it in the graphic. Broncos receive a first, a 2024 fourth, Chase Edmonds, and the Broncos also said a 2025 fifth. Guys, let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been kind of the camp, like, to me, this coming up to the trade deadline, this Bradley Chubb trade talk was not a shock whatsoever, right? Like if we're starting at the beginning of the timeline, the Broncos this entire offseason, they didn't just prepare, or they didn't just like lead us to believe maybe Bradley Chubb is being traded. It felt like the Broncos were preparing for a move like this. It really did. Like when you go out there, you take your best inside linebacker in Baron Browning. You're like, we're switching your position to edge. You sign Randy Gregory to a big contract at edge. And then you go in the second round, your first draft pick of the year, and you're like, we're drafting an edge. The Broncos the Broncos like led us to believe that Bradley Chubb was not in their future plans in that. The Broncos didn't draft Nick Bonito at 64 to be a long-term fourth edge rusher, right? Like, let's just be honest with each other. That's not something they were thinking of doing. It does feel like a little because of that, with how well Bradley Chubb has played, there was no going back unless you're admitting mistake on either Randy Gregory or Nick Bonito. There wasn't going back, which is okay because, hey, the Broncos got a pretty fair package back, in my opinion. They got a first, next year fourth, and Chase Edmonds, right? Let's talk about it. A first-round pick is really, really good. Obviously, the Broncos don't have one. It's nice to recoup that a little bit. They can put that in the offensive side of the football, and I'm personally okay falling a little on defense if that means our offense takes a lift. Like I just am. We're losing because we aren't scoring enough points. That's like kind of my overall thoughts at the moment. Zach, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think as like kind of a prelude to the trade itself, that hits the nail on the head. They really they were on these tracks for a long time where it was going to be moving on from Chubb eventually. I think the only world where they keep Chubb is one where they get rid of Gregory. And so that would be franchise tagging Chubb this year, giving him about $20 million. And then next year, you'd have to have another strong season, and you'd have to come to the conclusion that you prefer him over Gregory. Even if you think he's playing better than Gregory, is he playing, $10 million a season better than Gregory? Because if he puts together two Pro Bowl caliber seasons, that's the sudden price for Bradley Chubb. And I don't like, it's hard to be $10 million better than what we saw from Randy Gregory earlier earlier this year. So yeah, it kind of adds up to me. I think they've been on this road for a while. They were going to get rid of one of them eventually, and the odds heavily favored that person being Bradley Chubb. And it's hard to imagine a better return for this or than this. The first round pick obviously is huge. 49ers are trending in the right direction, but like, who knows? I think that pick's probably in the low 20s, all said and done. And then you're looking at the fourth round pick will be helpful down the road. Chase Edmonds is an awesome pickup, honestly. He hasn't been the most productive running back this year, but the Denver Broncos had to insert some juice into this offense. I don't think Chase Edmonds is a super valuable piece by any means, but they go from having to almost definitely sign a free agent running back next year or next off season to having one already on the roster for $600,000. And I think Chase Edmonds can outproduce that $600,000 price tag, fills a need, kind of a desperate need. So I don't know. It's just a smart trade. It was going to happen anyways. You had to maximize value, and I think they did.
Maybe we should cover a little bit more of that aspect of it, Zach, because I think there is a notion out there in Broncos country that this happened because the Broncos were such in a deficit with draft picks because of the Russell Wilson trade. So I think a lot of people are feeling a little bit shaded at the fact that did it need to happen? Was it more of a cap issue, or was this going to happen either way? Was this a direct result of the Russell Wilson trade, or was Bradley Chubb never going to be in Denver long term?
I don't think it's a direct result of the Russell Wilson trade. Like, that's definitely a factor. You want to replenish draft picks and part of that. But let's take Russell Wilson out of it. Unless the Broncos were like a surefire contender, I mean, like in the top class of the NFL, Super Bowl is on the table. You prefer the first round pick helping to fill the need at running back and the fourth round pick over 9 games of Bradley Chubb and a fifth round pick. Because that's what it is. You were going to get 9 games of him. We can go back in our DeLorean and critique last offseason and say Peyton should have used pick 64 on a different position. So you look at Nick Bonito's pass rush win rate. I had that tweet today. He's winning his snaps in a small sample size at a high rate so far. You could critique signing Randy Gregory. Maybe you should have just gotten Chubb on a cheap extension then and bet on the in-house guy. Maybe like if you had a time machine, that's probably what you do. That's maybe the best solution for everyone. But I don't know. You can see the future. I think signing a big name vet for edge insurance made sense. Randy Gregory produced at a really high level. I don't know. I think they've done a good job, honestly. But yeah, they kind of boxed themselves into this point, unfortunately, with how it all went. But I think every move was understandable along the way.
Peyton also said that he wouldn't have made the trade if there wasn't a first involved. Frankie Abbott wants to know over at Frankie's Films. Go follow him. Frankie's Film over on Twitter. Go follow him. Do you believe Peyton saying he would have made this trade if the team was 5-3?
No. I'll be honest, I don't believe that. I think that if the Broncos were 5-3 and we were looking at them like, oh, this team could win a Super Bowl or make a deep playoff push, it would be really hard for me or for the Broncos, I would imagine, to trading Bradley Chubb. I think just at that point, the Broncos are more buyers than sellers, right? Like, we are looking to get this roster even better to get us over the hump. I do think, though, that like, I don't think, going back to the prior question now, I don't think the Russell Wilson trade had much of an impact on this. I think that if the Broncos, if we still had Teddy Bridgewater, let's say, and the Broncos have this record, we're still trading Bradley Chubb. I don't think that you just have 2 first-round picks now. I think that's just how it was set up, being how they went around this offseason. And at the time, you guys have to remember, it made sense. It made sense to invest heavily in edge because Bradley Chubb going into the season, a lot of people were questioning like health-related stuff and things like that. Now, the weird part is the Broncos went outside Randy Gregory, right, who has an extensive injury history. But going after and actually chasing edge made some sense. They were lacking depth, especially after the Von Miller trade. You didn't know exactly what you were going to get from Bradley Chubb, and the Broncos were under the interpretation that after the Russell Wilson trade, we are in a Super Bowl run, and you have to get the edge room better if you are going to make a Super Bowl run.
I'm smiling and laughing. I think this is appropriate. I got a text just from my dad. He just now saw the news for the Bradley Chubb trade, and he said Bradley Chubb Dolphins ? WTF? Dad, if you'd like to tune in and watch Let's Talk Broncos, we're breaking it down now so you can get an idea of it. I'm gonna let him know to tune on in. So if we see some comments from here, Christopher Hart also agrees. And yeah, I believe that Denver trading Chubb was always on the table after signing Gregory, drafting Benito, and moving Browning. I mean, it seems fair. I just have heard a lot of chatter otherwise. I think a lot of people are fearing who's going to hold this locker room together. And that has been my biggest emphasis thus far.
Yeah, I think it was always inevitable. I think the difference, like Joey was saying, I don't know if I believe Peyton on the 5-3 thing. Maybe they don't make this trade, but I don't think that means like not making I think not making the trade would probably be the wrong decision in that world. Because again, if you're passing up on a lot, like a first round pick is a lot of value for 9 games of Bradley Chubb. And that's the thing. Yeah. When they made the other moves, Bradley Chubb was almost definitely not going to be a long-term Bronco, right? We could go back in time and maybe reverse the other moves at edge and then have that conversation. Right. But you have to thread the needle to get to where Bradley Chubb is a long-term Bronco. You have to probably franchise tag him after this year to see another year of him, have him play another good, healthy season, then decide he is worth the several million more. He's already at 20. If he had another good season, he's pushing 25. He's at 14. So you have to come to the conclusion that he's then worth 11 million more than Randy Gregory, and then sign him to an extension matching that. And then you'd move on from Randy Gregory as a part of that. It's just, that was probably never going to happen. And so at this point, yeah, it sucks maybe that they're not in the playoff hunt and this win now mode anymore. That does probably hurt the locker room. To your point, Bri, I think it does kind of hurt some of the hope and excitement Broncos country got from that London game. It gives you some future optimism, but nothing really in the immediate. But I don't know. I think this was always probably the best possible ending to the Bradley Chubb story once they signed Randy Gregory. And that sucks, maybe, but I think it's what.
A question that's been posed in the chat from Sean Kennedy over on YouTube. Thank you, Sean, for chiming in here. Opting for Gregory instead of Chubb seems unpopular to many, or at least questionable, but doing so brought us home a first-round pick. We don't get going in the other direction. Is Chubb better than Gregory into one?
It's a good question, right? Like, I think it's tough to say because for the run that Bradley Chubb is having right now, and I love Bradley Chubb, the player. Like, I want to make that absolutely clear. Bradley Chubb, the player, is phenomenal, complete player, right? Like a player that could get after the passer really, really well, defend the run really, really well. He's a smart player, and by all accounts, is a great player to have in the locker room. But this is a great question, right? Like before this season, I mean, a lot of people were questioning the Chubb's health. And I think Gregory, when on the field, now that's the big bullet point I want to hit on, when on the field, is really, really good as well. Having the tandem of them would have been awesome, but that it just doesn't work out that way when you made all the moves you did at edge this offseason. Is Chubb better than Gregory in a one? Probably not, no.
If he's healthy and Gregory's injured, yeah, and that's been the story of this season, but that hasn't been the story of their careers. If, over the next 3-4 years, and yes, Gregory's only a 2-year commitment, they can be around longer than that. That's what I was getting at with the whole the Broncos could have chosen to go with Chubb, but they would have really had to thread a needle. Is Chubb better than Randy Gregory a first and $11 million a year? And a lot less financial flexibility. Gregory has to stay healthy. That's the other part of the contract. Like, he's been awesome on the field. He's surpassing the value of that contract on the field. But part of the reason that contract was cheap was because of injury concerns. And right now he's missing at least 4 weeks on injured reserve.
Totally. Can I ask you guys a question real quick? I want to hit on the point of how this possibly, let's say the Broncos don't trade Chubb and retain him and sign him to a big contract. What does that mean for like the likes of Draymond Jones, who is a free agent this offseason as well?
The Broncos were always going to have to choose something. That's the thing, Broncos country. You're always going to have to sacrifice something. If you keep Bradley Chubb, you might be losing Draymond Jones. If you keep Bradley Chubb and Draymond Jones, you're probably not making any or impact free agent signings. And this team could use some impact veterans. We're seeing holes all over the roster. You weren't going to have it all. Also, you would have been down assets for this draft. So you look at all the areas the Broncos could use draft picks: wide receiver, cornerback, defensive line, offensive line, and then places where they could use them, but not premium picks: linebacker, running back, probably tight end even, a guy who could pair with Greg Dulcich, because Greg Dulcich isn't that inline guy. He's a remarkable talent, but you could use a complementary talent to go with him. Don't stab me, Bri. But point being, they don't have enough picks to address all those spots. Some areas were going to go unaddressed, and now they've taken what was a ridiculously strong position, weakened it a little, absolutely sucks in that regard, and now they have a war chest to address the many positions of need they have. I think they had weaknesses to justify that luxury.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I'm not going to look at you too sourly. Wayne King hops in. He's echoing a little bit of the question I brought up earlier. Wayne, please be sure to watch the show. At about 14 minutes in, I do bring up this question, although it has been brought up quite a bit, maybe not directly correlated to what would have happened. We still think Chubb would have gotten traded. So there's that for you. Zach gives a wonderful breakdown, as does Joey, as to why maybe that's not in line with what we're feeling. Listen, it's an emotional decision and an emotional reaction that Broncos country is having right now, whether you were for or against it. I know Joey is excited because now he gets to look forward to what the Broncos can get in return for that draft pick. And we'll have a lot of coverage coming to you from Let's Talk Broncos with some special guests and contributors to go over what the Broncos can do with the newly attained war chest, as Zach has put it. Joey, anything to add there?
Just hey, I mean, this offseason could have been really miserable if the Broncos didn't have a first-round pick. I feel it on the timeline right now. I feel it on social media coming from Broncos fans. Like, sure, it really does suck to lose Bradley Chubb. And I'm just speaking strictly to a fan perspective, right? But, boy, are a lot of people getting the draft itch right now. I feel it. I feel people getting excited about the draft, which makes me happy because I love it. And like Bri mentioned, hey, guys, stay tuned because we have some fun news coming up, draft related stuff. So make sure you guys are staying tuned with Let's Talk Broncos, and I will be probably tweeting something at some point soon about it.
Christopher Hart says, I already sent Joey 2 names. Look for those names, Joey. I know there will be a lot of conversation surrounding that draft. Jose Garcia, who I'm still not sure who this is. Why does everyone assume Bri has a knife? I know, for real. Do I give off those kinds of vibes? I'm not very
Yes,
stabby.
I think it's the constant threats of stabbing you make towards most people around you. I think those assumptions tend to get made when you say things like, I'm going to stab you. People go, she probably had something to stab me.
It's absolutely unprofessional.
But, yeah. What did I want to add? I want to talk about the Chase Edmonds part of this, definitely.
Okay. Let's do that.
Because I think that's a small but important piece. The Broncos are running backs don't matter, but part of the reason people say that is because there's so many good running backs. They're supposed to be easily replaceable. And the Broncos are not a test case in that right now. They are in a running back graveyard. Latavius Murray is well past his prime, is doing Good Morning Football spots in the offseason, guest hosting bits, is on the practice squad for the Saints, and comes into the building and is immediately the best running back for them. That's not good. Mike Boone was the only juice, and that's 100% true, Bri. Yards per carry, any way you want to measure production. like even if you want to get into advanced analytics that take offensive line play into account, he's
I
like
wasn't gonna say
tripling Melvin Gordon.
anything.
I saw the.
Although I saw a
it,
tweet
so-
today that says, "Oh no, not buying back into Chase Edmonds, not me." And I was like, "Well, I mean, come on. Why is Peyton saying that? Melvin Gordon is fine. Like he's not getting
because no GM's going to be like, yeah, this guy's a bum. He sucks.
Wow.
He's still a part of the team. I'm not saying that. I'm being hyperbolic to prove the point. GMs don't talk that way about their players. But yeah, Melvin Gordon's over the hill. Latavius Murray's lapping him. They need help in that running back room. And Chase Edmonds, while not being a superstar running back, I think could be some help. He's also on the books this season and next season for extremely cheap. The Broncos were probably going to look to draft a running back in next year's draft and sign one in free agency. Now they don't have to sign one in free agency. They've got a nice cheap option locked up.
Yeah, I agree there. I think it was I mean, is Chase Edmonds really that great? No, like I'll be honest with everybody. I don't think Chase Edmonds is the best running back. Like he's not going to come in here and be Javonte Williams 1B. You know what I mean? Like I just don't see that coming long term at least, right? But yeah, the Broncos needed a guy that could go in there and actually get some playing time and be productive a little bit because Javonte Williams isn't just out for this year. Like he could miss some of next year. The Broncos are going to have to be prepared for that. And even if Javonte Williams is healthy next year, he could look like a different type of player. Usually it's 2 years removed off a serious injury. And we're talking about a running back and Javonte Williams that he's just not your like typical running back. He's a freaking truck. He searches for contact, right? Like, so I don't know. I like the Chase Edmonds piece, and it helped complete the trade because to attain Bradley Chubb's salary, they had to give up a player as well.
I want to retract what I was just talking about Chase Edmonds. It's probably just a few week rental. I was looking at it before they had updated it with the trade, and I was wondering if I was misreading the chart, and I am. They will be on the hook for not on the hook. If he stays on the roster, it's a $6 million cap hit next year. That'll be the last year of the deal. You can't restructure on the last year of an NFL contract. So they'll probably just cut him. Yeah, but there's zero dead cap hit, so that's no problem. If he looks good, cut him, and you can bring him back for cheap. I wouldn't be worried about that. That's what they've done with Melvin Gordon and plenty of other players in the past that are in that Chase Edmonds range. It's normally fine to let those guys, if they're good. Like if this guy looks good, you could probably let him test the market, bring him back for cheaper than $6 million, and be happy.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you weren't saying Chase Edmonds was going to lap Melvin Gordon. Silly goose.
He probably will. I mean,
come on.
Good.
Don't make me yell on this pod. I just got my, emotions back in check. Now you're firing
Melvin Gordon
me back
hit 3 yards per carry in a game challenge.
How much of that is the offensive line and being able to do any blocking?
Man, well, the other running backs are doing it, and they're playing the exact same line. They are.
No.
More than Gordon.
Pull Latavius Murray and Boone and tell me.
Yeah, I already looked at it. Since Melvin Gordon joined the team, Latavius Murray has outperformed him in terms of yards per carry every single week.
Listen, Bri, I would not take this type of disrespect if I were you right now. I think that a big argument should happen here in defense.
I mean, Melvin Gordon did just score a fucking touchdown. Was that not enough for you?
Murray.
Well, yeah, but
the great thing about giving him the ball on the 1 yard line is he doesn't have to rush for 3 yards.
I'm not, where did I say, screw Latavius Murray? I didn't. And Joey's stirring the pot over here. Thanks a lot, Joey. I didn't want to get into this today. I didn't want to fight. Frankie says Melvin
I didn't think you'd put it up, so I had to jump on it.
Leave my chat alone. Melvin has among the worst EPAs among running backs in the league. That's fair. That's fair, Frankie. But you're not fighting for your life every gosh darn day talking about this Denver Broncos team. Listen, I'm not a totally on board. Listen, give me better running back performance from anybody. I don't care who it comes from.
That's very true. But
Zach has to put my name in his mouth when he's bringing up Melvin Gordon. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to fight for my life in here.
Yeah. Which turd is shinier is kind of what we're doing.
Great. Yeah, you're gaslighting me. They warned me they were going to do it, and now they're doing it live on the pod.
Oh,
Oh,
no, this
Frankie,
is
double slap. He's in the Drew Lock range of every graph.
Oh my gosh.
Let's talk about Jacob Martin. Oh,
Christopher says I'm getting Cole for Secret Santa. Wrong. I'm probably going to get another $20 from you off a bad bet, my friend.
Oh damn. Also, I know of Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby's an awesome running back. Good player.
all right. We'll continue to field questions and comments for the Bradley Chubb trade, but we are going to hop on over and start talking about Edge Jacob Martin from the New York Jets. I think I was actually talking a little bit of smack about Jacob Martin to start the season. He's obviously skipped around the league. I just had a fly touch my nose. Broncos send 2024 fourth round pick and receive a 2024 fifth round pick. Interesting. Talk to me a little bit about what you're going to see out of this Jacob Martin trade.
Yeah, I haven't watched a ton of Jacob Martin to know exactly. I haven't studied him thoroughly. But one thing I will say is from the numbers I've looked at, from a couple, Brandon Thorne, if you guys know who he is, very respected defensive line, offensive line guy. He seems to like him okay. He's from the way he described him, situational pass rusher, right? And he has a go-to move, that cross chop that can catch tackles off guard, and he's really good at it. Is a guy that can just come check in from what I've seen and from the different numbers and stuff like that. Sure, give it a shot. I'm not mad at it, especially when you lose a guy. Keep bolstering it. Keep bolstering this room. I'm not ever mad at bolstering the move. It just at some point, it becomes more of a luxury than it is something you need.
Yeah. I think it was nice. It really costs them nothing to move down from the 4th to 5th round, and you're going to get a few games of a good pass rusher. I'm not all that worried about it. I actually haven't looked up his contract. I watched a little bit of him, and yeah, I liked what I saw. I thought, immediately after the trade, I looked up his stats just because, that's quicker than doing a film breakdown. And in terms of pass rush win rate, is actually ahead of Bradley Chubb on the season in a much smaller sample size. And Bradley Chubb's getting doubled a lot more and a lot of deceptive shit in that number. But he is doing that. Got 4 sacks last year for the Texans and 38 pressures. That's solid production. I don't know. It's he's still probably better than Malik Reed. I don't know. He's going to be their edge rusher 4, so it's a much better spot to be in than where the Broncos have been in each of the last 2 years, where you have really ineffective players starting 33 games.
Coop wants to know what's the over-under on how many times we hear that Jacob Martin is a hometown kid.
Listen, we're
multiple times every game.
Yeah, no, it's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be insane, and then it's going to cause people to fall in love with Jacob Martin very crazy. I see it coming from a million miles away. You can see this coming it's a train at your face. But anyways, yeah, Bri, what do you think?
Oh, I didn't mean to click on that. Cherokee Trail. So shouts out there.
DT.
I don't know what to think on that one. That piece actually kind of surprised me. But I guess it doesn't hurt any, and then it adds some depth there. So can't really complain. I thought he was a little bit of a. He was with the Seahawks, I think, to begin with. Is that correct?
I don't know, honestly. I just know he was with
So I believe it was Seahawks, because that's when I was making fun of their front 7, and I was like, it's not really that strong. Then they moved on from Jacob Martin, and I was like, eh. And then now he's with the Broncos. So
in 2018, and then he was with the Texans for 2019, 2020, and 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm annoyed by the Colorado kid aspect. I hate it, if I'm being honest. And I'm a local Coloradan, but every time the Broncos, heaven forbid, they sign someone from Colorado, nope, can't critique them. Can't critique them. Doesn't matter if they're playing bad football. Doesn't matter if they're on practice squads for teams that are desperate for players at their position group. Nope, they're still superstars, and the Broncos need to obtain them by any means necessary. And it annoys me. Or they're playing bench-worthy football, and no one talks about it because they're from Colorado, and it's that's it's annoying. It's annoying. I don't like it. Let's critique Colorado kids the same way. That's so brutal. But we got to get to this joke, but then I have to circle back at some point to how Bri opened it. I did not know she had Jacob Martin hate, and that has to be dug into at some point.
Oh,
yeah. Let's get to the Topher comment.
I was just going to comment on Zach's hate. That's funny. All right. I was going to comment that my favorite part of this podcast is when Zach hops in his hater bag. It makes me laugh so hard. I freaking love it. I hate Colorado kids. Colorado kids suck. I'm a Colorado kid. I hate Colorado kids.
The thing is actually not Colorado kids. It's how everyone covers Colorado kids. But I take back. It's not the Colorado kids' fault at all. It's that everyone in Colorado is like, no, they're perfect. They're great. What would be wrong with that?
Well, so that's why me and Zach get along so well, because I was just telling the guys today in the group chat that I liked the white top, blue pants, and mostly just because everyone hated it. I just love to be a contrarian. And I was like, oh, that's a really great way to look at my brain. If you don't like it, I'm going to love it. And Zach just doesn't like people who get the hype that maybe they don't deserve. I don't know, Jacob Martin, I'm sorry. Welcome to Denver.
This podcast was a pretty big fan of Alberto, but
speaking of tight ends that people shouldn't be a fan of, Christopher Wright has a great point. Broncos should draft Trey McBride at pick number 64.
Did you know Trey McBride went to Colorado State? Let's draft that guy.
Colorado kid. He's the best tight end in the draft. Right. Broncos need to draft him with their first pick. No, they don't. They should have taken Greg Dulcich 80th overall. Sweet pick. They were dead on. You know what Greg Dulcich has? Nothing to do with Colorado.
Damn, this is like generational level hating. You know who you're reminding me of right now?
Sometimes
should I throw an ad out there?
Basically in 1932, both Trey McBride and Jacob Martin's great grandparents smited me, and that's just where my external hate comes from. Like, I can't actually get rid of it. It is actually generational hate.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going
LTB pod beef with a Bronco. We've made it.
It's so stupid. All right, let's continue on. Frankie says the Broncos should have picked up Garrett Grayson.
Damn.
Man, Garrett Gay. I'm a big Cepho Lufau guy.
What's the receiver that couldn't run right or left?
Asking the question that way is so brutal. I think you're referring to Warren Jackson, Joey.
Warren Jackson.
Oh,
okay.
I don't know how to move on from this.
Jacob Martin, he's going to help the Broncos out. I think he'll also be helpful on special teams. That's an aspect of this we haven't talked about yet. They lost Aaron Patrick, of course, to that honestly really heartbreaking injury. Being a special teams roster bubble guy, like, it's one thing for Tim Patrick, who's just got that massive contract to tear his ACL, and it's still absolutely heartbreaking, don't get me wrong. But it's another thing for Aaron Patrick, who's pure special teamer roster bubble guy, to do it on a tarp in or trying to protect himself from running into a media member, whatever it was, a weird, freaky incident. And now his career might be over, unfortunately. I hate to say it, it's heartbreaking. But Martin will help fill in for him this season.
I don't know why I started laughing as he was saying that. Frankie, school of mines. Christopher Hart, the Aaron Patrick injury was sad. It was a piece of carpet that shouldn't have been there. His foot got stuck. He couldn't escape it. That's kind of been the track of the Denver Broncos injury report this entire season. A lot of injuries they just couldn't avoid. They're freak accidents. Super bogus. Not a huge fan of it. All right. It's that time of day. Unless anyone has anything else to say. We got a lot of people here watching. If you want questions and comments highlighted, it is as easy as dropping them here in the chat. Yes, Zach.
I hope I'm not stealing Joey's question of the day, but a question maybe for you two. What would you grade these two moves from a Broncos perspective?
F. Joey, you go.
Okay, I think the Bradley Chubb trade. I mean, if you're just looking at the trade at face value, I think they got value back, the value that you'd want. you got a first and a fourth. The first is like, that's very highly thought of, right? Like teams aren't just handing out first round picks. Chase Edmonds, that's kind of just like a throw in there. That's the one that it feels like is just to make the trade work. If I'm being honest, I'd give it a B plus, the Chubb trade. And then as far as the other one, I don't know enough about the guy, so I'm going to go a C.
I feel like we're being set up for disaster here. Frankie gives it an 86 out of 100. I think that's a B plus.
Yeah, Frankie,
maybe a B.
It's like a B. That's surprising coming from Frankie, honestly, because he was so staunchly do not trade Bradley Chubb. So if you're getting a B from Frankie on it, I think they did a good job. I'd give it, if we're going real minute and making it out of 100, I'd say 91 out of 100 or something like that. Like just very low end A, like an A minus. If the Chase Edmonds contract was the way I initially thought it was, I think it was even better. Clearly was off there. You're also not getting a ton of capital for this year. I think that got overlooked. A lot of the picks are 2-3 years in the future that were getting moved around. And the Broncos have, like, getting one first round pick doesn't really fill up the Broncos pick shortage for this season. That is something that still kind of has to get remedied. Maybe even more like an 88, 89, somewhere in there.
Oh, Samuel Castro gives it a B plus, room for improvement. That's a fair take. Christopher Hart gives it an A. The other guy's a TBD. Frankie also says, I can be rational once in a blue moon. Frankie, we do appreciate it. You always bring it. I think overall, the trade day for the Broncos, pretty impactful, pretty monumental, although it does make me a little bit sad. I do think it deserves a B plus. I don't ask me because I'm feeling a little sad about it. Overall, what's great about this is George Paton continues to prove that he's able to manage his draft picks well. So this should spell another successful draft here coming up in the next season, which I think overall should be put into account here. It's not like you're giving the trade or the draft picks to the Raiders and hoping that they make something of it. You've got George Paton at the helm here. He's probably going to do exactly what this Denver Broncos team needs. So I'm going to say overall, you get an A for it because in George Paton, I trust.
Yep. And then Jacob Martin, that's going to get a B for me too. It's a much smaller B because like the impact is way lesser, but I don't know. You're getting a really like the fact he's your edge rusher number 4. I think that's really good. And it makes sense to invest a good deal in depth there because you've got an unproven guy in Benito, 2 injury prone guys now in Gregory and Browning. So I think having some solid backups that you can rely on is always going to be important. I think Jacob Martin's that, and he's cheap. Next year, cap hit of $5 million. Year after that, cap hit of 3.5. So you're also getting some control with him, but you're not locked in. If you don't like him, you can move on from him next year, save $4 million against the cap, and only $1 million in dead cap. So I like it.
You know, we at the start of this season decided to grade the draft picks. We attended the draft. We saw what happened. We had initial, reactions to that really quickly. Do you guys have any feelings about how those draft picks are working out now at this point in the season? We don't have to grade them. We don't have to get nitty gritty. But how are you feeling about that? Because I think that, for a second there, people were already out on George Paton, and then it really did swing in a different direction. That can tell you just how volatile Broncos country can be sometimes. But I'm feeling pretty good about what he's been able to do. Kean, Nick Benito, Greg Dulcich, and Montrell Washington. You guys want to just touch on that real quick before we get to Joey's question of the day?
Yeah, for sure. This is a good question, Bri. I'm happy you asked it. I think overall, like when you're missing your first round pick and then your first pick of the draft is the last pick of the second round, it's going to be hard to have the impact like the Broncos did with the draft class prior, right? Like it's just a harder thing to do. You're picking players later. But overall, like it's hard for me to really have Zach has mentioned the Nick Benito pass rush win rate, which has been awesome. But hey, sample size is really small and he still has a ton to prove for me. I'm still very TBD on Nick Benito, if I'm being honest. Greg Dulcich has really impressed me. I'm happy with that pick at the moment. Damari Mathis has really impressed me. That one looks like a solid pick at the moment. I will say the Montrell Washington one, I would have liked to see him more incorporated in the offense, especially after some of the hype he was getting this preseason, but he was a late round pick. He was like, it's hard for me to it's hard if I erase the hype he was getting and for what I guess we thought he might be able to do. It's hard for me to really complain about that. So I don't know. I'm very much to be determined. It hasn't blown my socks off, but I'm not mad at it. Like the players, a lot of the players look promising to me at least.
Yeah, I think Benito is trending up after a kind of disappointing start to the season. Oh man, I uploaded a thing really quick and it came in sideways for some reason. Don't know why that happened. I screenshotted it right side up and it was right side up the whole time. That's really frustrating. Anyway,
oh, man,
I have it in front of me. If you want to view it sideways, it's always an option. But I think Nick Benito, that's looking solid. Greg Dulcich is looking absolutely amazing. Damari Mathis, I think what you're getting out of him right now for a day 3 rookie corner, you're really happy with. Uwazurike and Turner Yell, I think those are safe to call disappointments at this point. Uwazurike especially, that's a 24, 25-year-old rookie. The fact he's not contributing, like that's not a project. Like that's concerning that he can't contribute right now. That one's probably a whiff. That's a 4th round pick, so that matters. Actually just one pick after Damari Mathis. So that shows you, I think that was a miss. Delaren Turner-Yell has been, I think, also a disappointment. He's really just been a special teamer, and I don't think he's been an overly impressive one at that. Montrell Washington started the season great, but as it's gone on, it looks like, wow, maybe he is only a special teams guy, and the punt returning stuff has come back down to earth, where now maybe he's not good enough to be worth a 5th round pick as just a special teamer. Wattenberg's a TBD. Faion Hicks hasn't panned out, but pick 232, who really cares? Matt Henningsen, though, is a nice story. Has greatly outperformed his draft stock and looks like a nice young piece on that defensive line.
So overall, not too shabby. I don't think it's too bad. I don't think we're totally down and out about it. It's all right. We're giving it a C, performing as to be expected.
C plus maybe because they had so little capital and they're actually getting a good bit out of those first 3 picks. But yeah, C plus. If you're generous, maybe a B minus. I don't think that's. I don't know. I think it's really a TBD. We're so early.
Yeah, it's C plus for me. Nothing to blow my socks off, but enough to keep me confident.
For as pessimistic as I can sometimes come off, I think I'm just the more optimistic when it comes to the Broncos with you guys. I'm giving it a B. Frankie says Damari Mathis might make Darby's likelihood to get cut much more stomachable.
I mean, hey, I like the way Damari Mathis has been playing, guys. Like, let's hype that up a little bit. After that first week where all the PIs, he was getting cooked, it looked like they were just looking at him every single throw. For him for the next 2 games after that to be really quiet, to be a rookie, to be drafted where he was, that's pretty good stuff, and I'm happy about it.
87 yards of penalties, like just a bad slice of it. Not good whatsoever. All right. Oh, he fixed it.
Nice.
I did it. I'm not worthless. But yeah, I think those first 3 picks are looking awesome. Next 2, not so good. Montrell and Matt Henningsen are ones to watch, as is Luke Wattenberg, and then Faion Hicks hasn't panned out. But at that point, pick 232, I kind of expect those not to pan out.
I'm just staring into I was reading, I got caught up in it. I forgot we were not good for the audio version of this podcast. Yeah. All right, guys, it is that time of the evening and we're ready for Joey's question of the day.
Okay, guys. Okay, guys. Mine's simple. We got some draft capital today, so I'm going to keep it kind of around that. What do you guys think? And we're looking far out. It could change, but if you guys could get a player at any position for the Broncos in the first round, what would it be?
Wide receiver. Just kidding.
No, I think it's a fine answer. I've opened my mind to that. So I gave Bri a hard time.
This afternoon, you were yelling at me this afternoon.
I know. I gave you a hard time for being a Judy hater, but since this afternoon, Robbie opened my eyes. while you
love
were
it.
napping.
Everybody who's listening, wow, just putting me on all fronts, calling me out across the board.
Well, I don't think
everybody
that's
who's
calling you
watching it-
out. People can nap.
I don't sleep. Yeah, I
No, you
want
sleep during the
everybody
day like a vampire.
with my arms across my chest. I want everyone who's listening right now to this Let's Talk Broncos podcast that Zach Seegers didn't take my word for it. He had to wait until Robbie NFL, switched his mind about it. So I just want everyone to kind of
Robbie made it more compelling. You didn't make a case. It wasn't like you laid out I said that's because you're a Judy hater, and you went, yeah, true. That was not a compelling counterpoint.
I was tired and I went and took a nap. All right.
But no, I think wide receiver is a fine option. I do think it has to be offensive line. My concern is if the Broncos are picking in the 20s, I worry about the quality of offensive line prospect they're getting, to be honest. I think a lot of the guys we've seen come into the league and be successful quickly recently have been in that like top 15 pick range. And there's so many offensive tackle busts in that like 20 to like 64 range. It's the Bermuda Triangle for offensive tackle. It just scares me. But I think in a perfect world, it'd be that. But I think defensive line should get some more attention. Draymond Jones and DJ Jones are awesome, but DJ Jones won't be around forever, and they could use depth in that area for sure.
I think it's got to be tackle, right? Like, I think that's the one that we're all thinking of at this point. Joey, where are you landing on that? Can you answer Joey's question of the day?
I can answer Joey's question of the day. I think offensive line is clearly the answer for me, right? Like, it's easy to see how one guy could change this or kind of lead us into a better direction. Garrett Bowles obviously at left tackle. Now there's some stuff, especially coming off an injury, where you could be looking at like, do the Broncos want him to restructure, right? Like that's something that you have to keep in mind. But Garrett Bowles, Quinn Miners are two guys that you want to continue have on your team. Billy Turner's looking okay right now. I think that me personally, I know people are going to hate this, but if I find an interior offensive lineman that I like in the late rounds, I'm not opposed to taking one. I'm really not. I think that it's easier to see those type of guys have success early in the league because they're not being taken like with a top 15 pick ever, pretty much, right? It takes a special interior offensive lineman to be taken that early. So the really good ones fall late into the first round, guys that you could possibly plug and play. And for the Broncos case, like we haven't had guys that are very good at all in our interior offensive line this year. You can kind of start to form a group there, I think, in my mind, if you were to take one where it's like, oh, it's serviceable.
And I think they can even fall further than that, though. Like I think you can get a really good guard in the third round. And I think if you get a veteran center, maybe a third round guard, the problem there is instant impact. But like Creed Humphrey fell to the very bottom of the second round. I think you can.
That was a lot because of injury, though.
No, that's true. That's true.
He was amazing.
But
his college tape was awesome, Creed Humphrey. It's just like he had so many injuries that he fell.
That's true. But I do love the idea of investing in that interior. I personally prefer getting a veteran at center just because it's a more mentally taxing position. But I think if you get a solid veteran at center, like Eric McCoy is probably going to be available out there from the Saints, I would be happy to invest in that, honestly. He's a little shorter, which works well with Russ, and he's just a baller. Go him, Quinn Miners, and, like maybe another first round guard, all of a sudden you can have an identity on the interior of that offensive line.
Fantastic conversation. Great question, Joey. Thank you for throwing it out there to everybody. On that note, where can everybody find your excellent work?
Yeah, guys, everyone, make sure you're giving me a follow at JR Drafts. I asked that same question on there. Make sure to vote on it. I asked the question on, what position should we start studying first? There was interior offensive line, offensive tackle, cornerback, and wide receiver included in that poll. So make sure you go to vote at that at JR Drafts. I have a lot more draft work coming up. One with you guys can guess, a friend of the podcast, frequently in the chat. So make sure you're keeping your eyes peeled for that. News coming there. And then, just make sure you're following all the Let's Talk Broncos account, the Let's Talk Broncos Facebook, the Let's Talk Broncos Twitter, the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube. Make sure you're following all that exclusive content coming to that for sure.
Yeah, I really want to echo that. JR is unreal talent in the Broncos media world, and we've only been getting a small dose of him recently. But he's going back to the grindstone, diving into all the draft stuff, and we're all going to be much better off for it. Not only is he going to be writing awesome stuff at Mile High Sports, where you can also check out some of my work if you so wish. The Joey stuff's required. Check that out over at milehighsports.com. And then there's also some secret stuff coming on down the pipeline, like Joey was saying. So go over to Let's Talk Broncos on YouTube. Easy to find. Just search Let's Talk Broncos on YouTube. Same thing goes for Facebook. Real easy to find. Look for our logo. You should know what that looks like by now. If not, look at your phone that you're listening to this on or computer. It's easy to find. Exclusive content. It's going to be all draft focused. It's going to be so nuanced and intelligent. You're going to love it.
Thank you, Samuel. You have a good night too. No more knives, I promise. Zach, did you plug your stuff or did you just
Mainly Joey and Frankie. Joey's the only Colorado
Frankie.
kid I like because he does his job.
Well, don't forget to go over to milehighsports.com or the Mile High Sports Twitter, where you can read all of Zach's excellent work. He posts at least once a day.
Yes.
You can follow all of his tweets. The threads are fantastic. The coverage is amazing. He's one of the best growing minds here in Broncos country, and his brain's still growing. He's young. He's moldable. He's out there at practice every time, bringing you up-to-date coverage on all things Denver Broncos. He's actually a really fun follow and does some tremendous work over there. If you've read any of his articles, and if you haven't, I implore you to do so. It is absolutely required reading. Yes. You're not going to get everything that you get from Let's Talk Broncos in those articles. It's additional information, and I really beg of you to do so. Exactly. Also, if you feel so obliged, you can listen to Mile High Sports Radio and catch me, which seems like basically every single day, talking about the Denver Broncos and all other Mile High Sports. That is primarily Mondays, the Fan Cave, 1 to 2 p.m. That's Mountain Time, and every single day here with the guys as we talk Broncos. It's been a fantastic night. The show felt amazing. I guess I needed that nap. I adore you both, so thank you for joining me tonight. And Broncos Country, we appreciate you. We will catch you tomorrow. Have a good one.